Welcome to Top Shelf Tech. Today we are talking with Simon Elisha from AWS about the recent announcement of the new edge locations in New Zealand. Simon, welcome along and thanks for joining us.
Thanks so much for having me.
Do you want to just start by introducing yourself a little bit in your role in AWS?
Sure. Yeah, I'm Director of Technology and Transformation here at AWS for public sector across Australia and New Zealand. I spend most of my time with our senior customers, helping them understand what they can do with technology, what they shouldn't do with technology, and also some of the cultural and organisational change that goes along with adopting a new way of working and a new set of technologies that are available. I also lead our teams across the region in terms of the work they do with our customers. So it's a pretty fun job.
Awesome, and look, really exciting announcement for you guys yesterday to launch in New Zealand with edge nodes, a couple of them in Auckland, I understand. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that actually means? What are AWS edge nodes? What services does that bring to New Zealand?
Sure. So this brings a capability into Auckland in particular to service the whole of New Zealand, which is Amazon CloudFront. And Amazon CloudFront is a content distribution network that both serves static content and also streaming content. It's really useful for obviously bringing content closer to users and starting the streaming process faster. It also acts as a cache. So if you've got lots of people accessing data, it helps improve that. So for example, TVNZ uses it as part of their on-demand TVNZ on-demand service. So that time to first byte becomes really important. But as well as just sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. It's really good for that user experience piece. And I think, when you're talking about streaming as well, you're not now pulling streams down from Australia across the Tasman. So quick to start, high quality improvements presumably in there as well.
Yeah, it definitely allows that sort of unconstrained bandwidth type experience. But the biggest effect I think most customers will see is up to 50% speed improvement in terms of latency. So that's noticeable in terms of your day-to-day experience of how snappy your screens are and apps are and downloads are.
I think that's a really key point as well. A lot of people think about bandwidth and they think about that in terms of how it relates to user experience, but the latency piece, that's that, does it feel fast to me as the end user when I'm going to that website, when I'm loading it up, does, my content...
No one wants to wait for the spinny ball thing to keep going.
That's right. That's awesome news to hear that's come down to New Zealand, Simon. And of course, there's a number of security features as well that are wrapped into the edge nodes. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Yeah, so I think one of the really interesting things is it allows you to have access to both AWS Shield and Shield Advanced. And these are a variety of security protections, particularly against DDoS attacks and other types of network threats. Something we recognize is that customers are trying to fight these off all the time. And it's almost a mystical dark art in terms of fending these off. And so by having the edge location in New Zealand, it also adds to the whole network that we have of well over 200 locations around the world that allow you to put that level of protection in front of your application to protect you from things like DDoS attacks, reflection attacks, all the other kinds of things. And just to give you a sense of sort of the number of attacks we see happening globally, in 2018, we helped defeat over 84,000 different attacks. And one of the attacks was particularly large. It was a 1.4 terabits per second memcached reflection attack. So you can see how the attacks are getting bigger, so the defense has to be even bigger than the attack can cope with.
And look, putting that into context, recently we've had a spate of DDoS attacks in New Zealand, and the aggregate total of those was said to reach around 160 gigabits per second. Of course, that's the aggregate total. Individual sites being attacked would have been expected to be less than that. So you're talking about 10, having defeated, actually performed, because these impacted these sites that were attacked, performed and mitigated an attack 10 times the size of that.
Yeah, and the mitigation is key. You're spot on, because you don't want to have the attack happen, the site becomes unavailable, then you're fixing it. This is all about defeating the attacks at the edge, hence the edge interest of this particular deployment, because it means that as a customer, you're worried about deploying your application and providing service to your customers, and you've got a group of global experts looking after that whole domain and becoming experts in that domain. And it's hard. These attacks are sophisticated, they're unusual, they're ever evolving. And so by getting a global view of this, we know when an attack's happening, oh yeah, this is one of those ones. Here's how we can easily mitigate it. We've seen this before. Or here's something new. Here's a new method to defeat that as well, without the customers having to worry about that at all. It's really about taking them away from that undifferentiated heavy lifting of defending against an attack.
And to some extent, the nodes in Auckland are only a very small part of that story. You mentioned the global network that you've got, and I think probably one of the key points there is if it's legitimate traffic and you're serving a customer on the other side of the world, they hit the closest node, and so actually they're getting an experience, even though you may still be hosted out of Sydney, that's snappy, like we've talked about, really high performing, and similar from a DDoS protection. You're not bringing all the traffic back to, say, Auckland or Sydney to protect against it. So that global network is a real advantage.
It is. It pushes traffic out to the closest location that it needs to be, and you're right. That includes both, from a positive perspective of customers having a great interaction, but also from a negative perspective of fighting off the attackers far away. And what I love about New Zealand is New Zealand has always punched above its weight on the world stage, and we're not going to talk about rugby union at all in this discussion. That's off limits, I'm afraid. But I look at companies like Xero who really are just a global success story, and for them it's not about hosting just for New Zealand customers; it's global customers, and they can use the same cloud content distribution network. They can use the same mitigations. Plus, they also use a technology called Global Accelerator, which can allow you to route traffic of your customers to the closest region if you're deployed in a regional manner too. That's also available in this edge location that we've deployed as well. So lots of really cool things to let New Zealand be part of the world again.
It sounds complicated, but Route 53 integration with these services in reality makes this quite simple to deploy, doesn't it?
That's the deceptive part. It's literally a 5-minute job to get your CloudFront distribution up and running. If you're already using CloudFront, it's already included now, so you didn't even have to do anything. The setting, it's kind of set and forget and up and go, and away you just go. It's not a long process. Often, it's interesting with customers these days, I find we spend more time debating whether we're going to do something than the time of actually doing it, which is very different to how IT was even 5 years ago or 10 years ago, where you'd have these big debates and then wait 6 to 12 months for it to actually happen. Now it's like, do you want to do this? Yes, click. Okay, next problem.
We're on. Yeah. It's not nice and easy, and I think that is really important because when you're talking about traditionally how you deploy these technologies and how you try to get that experience and good user experience globally and security mitigations globally, it was hard work. So that turnkey experience from an administrator's perspective, AWS experts' perspective, is actually really compelling. The ability to respond to something very quickly, or with a low investment up front, get in place a service like this.
And that's the thing, it is pay as you go, pay for what you use. So you're not having to fork out big dollars to get a service you may or may not use. You're paying as you go for what you use. And the other nice thing is often people find when they move from their existing CDN provider to CloudFront, it's actually significantly cheaper as well. So it's one of those less common scenarios where someone says, here's something's better, and it's actually cheaper as well. It's like, well, where's the decision? There's no decision here. Let's just go ahead.
Yeah, I think, adding to that real world experience with the recent spate of DDoS attacks, there were a lot of people that were paying for quite expensive services and, maybe found out that either they weren't quite getting what they thought they were, quite what it said on the tin, or just, it's not backed by that hyperscale cloud. And that's key, hyperscale cloud to actually deliver the processing power to try to deal with this stuff at the scale that you can. We do put stuff in cloud. It is global.
And that's the thing is, we have a saying at Amazon, there's no compression algorithm for experience. And that's a nice way of saying is there's a lot of hard lessons to learn along the way. And if we can pass those on to our customers without them having to have the pain of learning, it's a big win. And because, security is always our highest priority in everything we do. And our mental model is to build security into everything that we provide to our customers and make it easy and cheap, if not free, to actually use it. So simple things like, if you want full disk encryption on your EC2 instances, you click a checkbox. That's it. You want key management, it's there. You want encrypted S3, it's there. You want encrypted network links, they're all. It's just it's just how it should be. But I get I've been in IT for over 30 years now, and I remember when the decision for security was one of, well, how much bad performance do I want to tolerate, and how much cost do I want to have, and how much complexity. That's off the table now. Everyone should be able to deploy super securely and have a great consumer experience.
Absolutely. So, Simon, one of the other features that the Edge Nodes brings is Lambda at Edge. Can you tell us a little bit about how that might be used by customers?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting service. So Lambda, just in general, is our serverless capability. So it's the ability to deploy code without servers, hence the serverless name. There's servers underneath there, but you're well abstracted away. What Lambda at Edge does is takes that compute processing capability and puts it at those different edge locations, so you can do custom processing of data on the way in and out, depending on what you're doing. So this may be, you want to modify some headers as they're coming in or out, or you may want to filter certain types of traffic, or you may want to alter something before it gets to that particular customer, but not for all customers. So the Lambda at Edge is one of those kind of Swiss Army knife tools of lots of different things you can do to make your experience better. And one of the fascinating things I think about pretty much all of our services is whilst we build them for our customers with an intent, we never know exactly what they're going to do with it. And that's good, because you can make it do what you want it to do. And you can be deploying in Node.js, or you can be deploying in Python, etc. You can use the language you want to use, but get that really great customer experience as close to the customer as possible. And that's what's super important. This is all this stuff that we're talking about is about your customer and how delighted they are with the service they're using.
Yeah, I think, and so that with Lambda at Edge, we've maybe seen some similar capability in load balancers in the past, where you can modify traffic on the way through, but typically you're learning a different language, you're learning a different syntax. Like you said, with Lambda, it's Lambda at Edge, it's similar to Lambda, absolutely serverless, and you're able to deploy in that in a number of different languages, so it's things you're already comfortable with, which again, I guess gets you to the point of going, I'm not thinking too much about the tech, I'm thinking about just how I modify that user experience and customize or personalize that.
Yeah, there's this real move to just focusing on the business logic. And I think as an IT community, we've spoken about this for the longest time. Like, even I started in mainframes and we're talking about business logic. But we've really got to a point now where you can say, I'm just going to focus on the business logic because I know I can run a Lambda in the region, at the edge, on a local device like a Snowball. I can run it on Greengrass as an IoT device. Like, I don't have to relearn, like you say, every different modality. I can solve the problem and then move the problem solution to where it belongs. That's super powerful and just makes it easier as an architect to design things.
Awesome. Well, look, thanks a lot for joining us today, Simon. Really appreciate your time. Really appreciate the investment AWS has made down in New Zealand, and I think it's a great opportunity for Kiwi companies, in particular those that are looking to compete on the global stage, to leverage services like AWS, CloudFront, and be able to deliver quality customer experiences and highly secure and protected services while they're at it.
My pleasure. And one thing I'll add is, this is available now. So this is not an announcement that it's coming. You can jump into the console and get started today. So we're big fans of making announcements for things that are available for our customers. So I really look forward to hearing how people go with it.
Awesome. Thanks again for joining us, Simon.
Cheers.